So guys, our computer problems are hopefully over. The Smith family would like to give a huge thank you to the Burton family for your amazing love toward us to get us that new computer. Thank you so much. I'm sorry if you wanted to remain anonymous, but in this case we just had to say thank you and can't wait to see you guys. For those who don't know, the Burton family, they're great friends from California and they are moving to Missouri soon. So we are excited and look forward to giving you guys a date to let you know when they're going to be here, and when they come they're going to be part of this Thousands of Roots vlog, part of our lives here on the homestead, building their home right on our land. Thank you, Burtons. Love you guys. Okay guys, so one of the next big homestead projects that we're going to be tackling is getting our chickens under control. If you guys have noticed in the videos, there are chickens everywhere. We're going to be tackling the topic of chicken confinement, to confine or not to confine, focusing on kind of three methods. The movable coop, super popular right now, chicken yards, and then the third topic of just total free range. So it seems like number 3 would be the best, total free range, because then the chickens can totally utilize every scrap of food off the land and then you're not having to feed them as much. That's kind of the method that we started out with, but there are obviously pros and cons to each method, and every situation, every homestead is going to have their unique setting, their unique environment, and so it's going to look different for everybody. So we are just going to be looking at what we've learned and what our situation is here and what we think is going to be the best setup for our chickens, because they've got to get out of our zone 1. They're driving us crazy. If you're not familiar with zone 1, it's actually a permaculture term, and it's the area right close around your house. So for us, that's our front stairs, patio, even our kitchen garden area. There's chicken squat all over, guys. Chicken squat, chicken squat, chicken squat, chicken squat. Of course, their favorite place is the garden, but when they're not in the garden, they're in the patio or on a ledge somewhere, leaving their droppings under our solar hot water collector, leaving their droppings. It's a little windy out, so I came in the greenhouse hoping that'll make it not so loud here. So our hope going forward with the chickens is to do chicken yards. So yes, confinement, but here's how we're hoping it works. We're gonna have 3 main gardens: the kitchen garden, a front garden, and a side garden. And so we're hoping to build chicken yards on the edges of each of those garden spaces so that we can toss nutrient to the chickens. It'll be very convenient. Anything extra that we're growing, weeds, anything we want to chuck out of the garden area can go straight over the fence into the chicken yard, and they'll be essentially our composters. So that's how most of the chickens are going to be confined. And then we do want to have one movable coop crew that follows our animals on the pasture, 3 days behind the cows, and eventually we hope to have sheep. And so one movable coop with a crew of chickens to go behind them to scratch out the manure, get the fly larvae, and help spread the manure around on the pasture. So no more total free range for us, although I know that works for some people. It just has not worked for us. So that's what's coming. We had to make fencing between us and the neighbors a priority this weekend. We had hoped to start on the chicken yards, but that became the priority, and the boys and Kip almost finished that. It's almost done, at least with as much fencing as we have presently. And then we do have the horse fencing waiting for the chicken yards, so that's coming soon. And we'll probably talk more about the pros and cons of the different chicken systems when we start getting those yards put in place. So that's where we're at so far. We're hoping instead of having mass compost bins to use chicken yards on the edge of the garden spaces to build our compost. But we are going to have some compost bins like the one we worked on the other day. Let me show you how that turned out. So here it is. We haven't been able to get the front side quite tall enough. We're going to need Kip's help on that. But right now it's about 2 feet high and 3 feet square. So we just need to get about another foot or 2 high. And it's full of leaves and old straw and hay and of course cow manure. This bin here might be ready for next fall to put in. We want to put a raised bed here in the greenhouse, so it might be ready to put in that bed for some fall planting and seeing if we can overwinter some plants for the first time here in the greenhouse. And then also in this other corner over here, there's plenty of room for another big compost bin over here once we finish getting this corner ready. Then we'll have the 2 bins in the greenhouse, and they'll just be for putting in the raised bed that's in the greenhouse here. Make it nice and convenient. Other than being our composters on the edges of our gardens, we're also hoping that having chicken yards on the edge will give us a buffer from this jungle. I know it's fall now, so you can't tell how crazy it was, but we had to lay metal down to be a buffer from this wild jungle that's on the edge of our garden, and you can see how overgrown it is. So the hope is to put 2 chicken yards on this main kitchen garden all along this edge, along this whole edge, to be a buffer from all the weeds and wilderness, to hopefully keep the weeds from getting in our garden so much. And then wherever there's not chickens on the edge of garden spaces, we are hoping to maybe do some raised beds to be a little bit of a buffer. And then also some of the garden spaces are on the edge of driveways. So we may be putting a little bit of vinyl down and more gravel to help keep the weeds from just going crazy along the garden edges. And another benefit to having the chickens on the edge of the garden spaces is that we can have a gate from their yard into each garden space, and so during certain times of the year we'll be able to allow the chickens into the garden area to scratch it up, to spread manure, to spread wood chips, to eat bugs, lots of different things they can do in the garden spaces at appropriate times of the year. So instead of the chickens being total free range, leaving their droppings everywhere, you don't want them, they're going to be in chicken yards on the edge of garden spaces. They're going to be our composters, our weed buffers, and at certain times of year they'll be able to come into the garden and debug and help spread things that we want spread in the garden. And then we're also hoping to go back to a bit of a back to Eden method garden for the inner areas. So raised beds on the edges and chickens. Sorry for the wind here, guys. Chickens, raised beds, and gravel driveways on the edges. And then on the inside of all of our garden spaces, we're hoping to be able to get a wood chipper so that we can do our own wood chips. Well, hopefully getting our own wood chipper will allow us to do the back to Eden method here and not have a lot of cedar. We'll be able to decide what we want to put in the wood chipper, obviously, and we'll only put stuff that's going to benefit the garden and not harm it. And it's very slow progress with Kip only having 1 day on the homestead a week, but I know many of you out there can understand. You guys, a lot of you are in similar situations where you have very little time to put toward homestead projects. Many of you going off to work full-time. Let's not get discouraged. Let's keep going forward, and little by little these homesteads are getting built. It's exciting to be able to be a part of this movement and be a part of building something for the future of our children. So press on, slow and steady. Let's keep building these homesteads. Thanks again for joining us here at Thousands of Roots. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't. And whatever you do, do it with your whole heart.
like it, Daddy, little beetle? Go and give her a little bit. Think she likes that stuff? Hey! Yeah, you like that stuff?